Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our 5th episode of the Friday Property Clinic. On this episode, we're taking a look at what exactly is the real cost of cheap when you buy your property or your land in Zambia. It's an interesting one because we get a lot of people that come to us after having tried to go through the whole process through friends and family, and they need somebody to help them sort out the problems that they now find themselves in. So we decided this was actually a really good topic for us to dive deeper into and really try and understand. You think you're doing this process on the cheap, but actually what is the real cost of that cheap? So, as per usual, this week I am joined by my co-host, Natasha Chumia, and she's also joined by our guest this week, Tandiwe Folotia Mwiko, who happens to be her business partner at the law firm that they run together, Folotia and Chumia Legal Practitioners. Ladies, how are you over there in Lusaka?
We're good, thanks.
Hey, Tanya.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm jealous. I want to be in Lusaka. I don't want to be here. So let's take a look at this topic. Natasha, if you want to take over and run through the questions, and then we'll see what we actually get to discover about the real cost of cheap.
Great, thanks, Tanya. Well, I'm really happy that you're here with me today, Tandiwe.
It's a pleasure to be here, Tash.
Okay, so we know that many people in the diaspora, they want to buy land or they want to build at home. But often their family members dissuade them from using professionals because they're seen as too expensive. And these same family members persuade their diaspora relatives to use them in order to buy a piece of land or to build because they think that this is saving them money. And this is seen as the cheaper option, but I want us to talk today about how cheap is cheap. What's the real cost of using family members to do a commercial transaction on your behalf, especially when you're not in the country? So I want us to just talk through some examples. I know that in the firm we've seen quite a few examples of where cheap has actually gone wrong. And I'm just hoping that we can share some of our experiences with our viewers.
Sure. And I think one example is to when it can.
Exactly. Okay, so we have a situation of one lady who lost her deposit. She wanted to buy some land in Chisamba. It was a 5-acre plot, which was priced at about $17,500, obviously the kwacha equivalent. We're just using dollars because we know that we have viewers from all over the world. And so, you know, dollar is a currency that everybody understands. She arranged for a 20% deposit, amounting to about $3,500 to be paid to the buyer through her sister. Unfortunately, to be paid to the seller through her sister. Unfortunately, the seller never saw that deposit. Her sister used it for her own purposes. And that $3,500 is less than the cost of legal fees. If she had used a lawyer, then she could have channeled her deposit through her lawyer and it would have been passed seamlessly onto the seller. We have another case where a client even lost a piece of land. So one gentleman was living abroad and he decided to buy a piece of land from a family that was subdividing their farm. The person selling the land died, an administrator was appointed. Unfortunately, our client was so eager to obtain the property that he paid about $4,000 at the time, which was quite a lot of money. It came to about 40 million, which was before the currency was rebased. So unfortunately, the family started struggling financially and they just couldn't finish the whole process of subdividing. And after many years of pursuing this, our client ended up just dropping the whole issue. So he had no land and no money and no recourse. Years later, when he decided to try the process again of buying land, he engaged us and he got his title deeds within 6 months.
We've had quite a few of those transactions, that takes so long because people are buying from individuals. You know?
Yes.
When they run out of money, it takes years and years and years for us to sort out the title deed. So it's best not to go for individuals and best to go for a development, right?
Exactly, yes. Or if it is individuals, to get legal advice from an early stage so that we can advise them of the potential pitfalls. And also building gone wrong. We've also seen examples of that where, for example, we know somebody who was, he bought a piece of land, he decided to build some flats, and he was sending thousands of dollars worth of materials for the electricals. Because he had a friend who said he could do it for him. And when his first tenants moved in, not a single light switch was working. There wasn't a single plug that was working. When the truck called his electrician friend, he discovered that his phone was off. When he sent another electrician to the apartments, he found that there wasn't a single wire in any of the units. All of the plugs and light switches were cosmetic. So this poor gentleman had to shell out thousands of dollars just to do the job properly again. So again, we have another example of the real cost of doing something on the cheap.
What really baffles me, Tanya, is that this electrician thought he would get away with it.
He was bound to be discovered.
Yeah.
So you've got some examples of your own as well, don't you?
Oh, yes. Yeah. You know, building on the cheap is just not worth it. Now, I had a small budget to build some flats. I used a cheap builder who I could afford, but he wasn't very good. I came on site one day and I almost had a heart attack. The plastering was done so badly that we had to spend more money and time redoing it. 5 years later, the plumbing has to be redone because all the cheap materials have worn out. It's just not worth it.
Wow.
And again, I would urge people in diaspora to use professionals like architects because they save you money in the long run. Architects are trained to make the best use of your land. You know, they figure out things like wind direction. When I was building my house, I've saved quite a bit of money on air conditioning because the architect made sure that the breeze of whatever direction goes through my house. And during the day, it is just lovely. So I've saved about $10,000.
That's a great saving.
Yeah, on air conditioners. Yeah.
So such a
Sorry, Tanya, we didn't hear your question.
no, I just said such a simple solution.
Sorry?
I just said it's a really simple solution.
Yeah,
Yes.
very, very. And also, architects know how to make the best use of your land. So you really get value for your property. These days, Lusaka has many beautiful properties. And if you want to build to let, for investment purposes, your property has to stand out.
I think that's a really good point, actually, because even though, yes, there is a housing deficit, there's still so many really good properties on the market. And if you want to get a good rent, you have to show it at a finish. The hardest part.
Yeah.
So what is the real effect of relying on family and friends? So I think that this actually places an unfair burden on family and friends. And we talk more about family because it usually is family. You know, you're asking people who have no training in this area to do something for you, which people go to school for. And what happens is that they get bogged down in the process and they give up. So they'll start sending you excuses, or they'll start sending you reports that are not true because they really can't tell you that they've been overwhelmed by the process. Also, another really important thing, and the reason why we say it's an unfair burden on family and friends, is that you don't know their personal situations. You know, as Zambians, we are brought up to be very private about our affairs. So sometimes you won't even know what your brother or your sister or your aunt and uncle, you don't know what's going on in their home. And when you send them money, it might even be a small amount. It might be $1,000, $2,000. It might be much larger. But for them in that situation, the temptation not to use it may just be too great. And this can lead to feelings of betrayal, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And the betrayal is not only in money, but in trust as well. Family relationships can often be ruined for years. You know, the breakdown in trust and love is something that money just can't buy or repair. There is no recourse, as often family members won't want to take to use the law, you know. And this can leave deep feelings of resentment and bitterness among the family.
Yeah, because family members will be telling you, yeah, you know, don't go to the police,
you
this
can't
is your
sue your
brother.
And then the feeling of betrayal then extends to the whole system, where people think, if I can't trust my own family, my brothers and sisters, I won't be able to trust the professionals, which is wrong, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then people think that the whole system is corrupt, and that's not true.
Yeah, no. We've got some very good professionals in Zambia. I have an example with one of my clients where her husband gave her thousands of dollars to buy a property in Zambia, and she gave the money to her brother, and I don't know what he used the money on. And I felt so sorry for my client, because she then had to go back and tell her husband that her brother had chewed all her money.
So what's the solution?
The solution is ask for references from those who have successfully bought property and built at home. Yeah. Once you're professional, ask them for testimonials or references from customers that they have done work for.
That's important.
Yeah. Check that they're registered with the relevant regulatory body. For example, the Law Association of Zambia, the National Council for Construction, the Zambia Institute of Estate Agents, yeah, just to name but a few.
I think it's also really important that to understand that when you pay a professional, they're obligated to provide them. They're not doing you a favor. And very often family members feel like they're doing you a favor. And if they don't perform to their professional standard, you can report them to the same regulatory bodies, especially if they're being negligent. And just really think about how much money do you save by using a professional? Because you're not going to have to pay over and over again for the same thing. You pay once, an agreed fee for an agreed task. And that's really important to think about. But I think the most important thing is, what is the real price for peace of mind? You know, you may think that you're being cheap by using family members, but you're never really quite sure what they're using the money for. When you pay a professional, you have that peace of mind. Yeah. So we're just going to summarize. I think we've come to the end of our points, but maybe just for everyone out there, we're just going to summarize what the main points are.
While you're doing that, so we don't have offers. It's really interesting, because I think the other thing, when you are using a professional, you have more rights to be diligent and to expect them to follow, the time frames that they've given you, because you're paying for the service. But you certainly can't kind of go back to your brother and say, why haven't you done this by this time? Because you do still have that thing.
Yeah, to tell you how busy he has been.
Exactly.
Doing his own things.
But at least when you're paying for the service and you're paying good money for the service, you have every right to demand a good service,
Exactly.
So true.
Okay, so just to summarize then, people in the diaspora are often dissuaded from using professionals because professionals are seen to be too expensive. And, people are persuaded to use family members in order to save money. But what is the real cost of being cheap and saving money in this way? So we have situations where one lady we know lost her deposit because she decided to channel it through her sister, and her sister used it for her own purposes. We have situations where a gentleman decided to buy a piece of land, and he decided not to engage lawyers, and he lost the land and he lost his money. We also had a situation where a gentleman was building and he used a friend to do the electricals for him, and that friend didn't do anything with the materials that he sent. He had to shell out thousands of dollars to get the job done properly.
And building on the cheap is just not worth it, because when you build cheap, you spend so much money redoing all the bad work. And also use architects. They know what they're doing. They'll save you lots of money.
And if you want to know more about using architects, then check out the video that we did with Itwi, who's an architect, about how to build. If you've got a piece of land and you want to build, he's an architect and he took us through step by step, and you'll see how important it is to use an architect. And the effect of relying on family and friends is that it places an unfair burden on your family members and your friends sometimes. They're not trained professionals. They get bogged down and overwhelmed with the process. You don't know the personal situation in their homes. They may be in financial distress. And when you send them the money, the temptation may be too great and they'll end up using it for their own purposes.
And then the betrayal and the loss of family trust is just not worth it, you know. And then the whole system gets corrupted because people think if you can't trust your own family, who can you trust? Which is not the case because we've got some very good professionals in Zambia. Also, ask for references for people who've done work at home. Once you've identified a professional, ask for testimonials. And also check that whoever you're using is registered with a regulatory body.
Yes, understand that when you pay for professional services, people are not doing you a favor. They have to perform and they have to perform to a certain professional standard. Otherwise, you have every right to report them. And think about how much money you actually save when you use a professional. And really, there is no price for peace of mind. So if you want to know more, please contact us at buyingpropertyinzambia.com, or you can email me directly on natasha.chumia@buyingpropertyinzambia.com. Oh, .com. Yes, thanks.
Excellent. Well, I think that was really informative. I think, the other issue that we have is people have this habit of always telling you the scare stories, when I bought, or my cousin bought, or my friend bought, this went wrong. And it's as though it's a way of putting people off buying. But the point is, it's not about being put off buying. It's about making sure that you do it the correct way, whether it's the land or the property, that you're looking to purchase. If it needs work, all of it should be done properly and professionally. You're investing your hard work and money into it. Why should you have it suddenly squandered by somebody else, So hopefully
it's about learning from people's mistakes. So when you hear the horror stories, you should ask yourself, what can I do to avoid falling into a similar trap?
Exactly. Yeah. So hopefully that's what we've managed to put across here, and people are going to think a bit more deeply about using their friends and families, and, realizing that professionals are professionals for a reason, so that they've got the experience, they've been through the different scenarios that people are going to go through. They can solve things quicker. It's not a learning process for them, Whereas if you've asked your brother to do it, it's likely to be a huge learning curve for them. So, get your professional, do the work in half the time at the right cost, basically. So very interesting. Okay, so well, ladies, thank you very much for joining us. Tandia, thank you for joining us on this episode.
Yes, pleasure.
Hopefully we'll have you on a few others. I'm sure that we will. Thank you very much. And Natasha, again, until our next episode together. We'll see you then. Thank you, ladies.